Okey, selamat pagi kepada semua pelajar. Alright, hari ini kita akan mulakan chapter baru iaitu chapter organic chemistry, okay, which is in chapter 4 introduction to organic chemistry. Now, in this chapter, if you look at the syllabus, if you can refer to the tutorial book page 16. Okay, we have 4 subtopic for this chapter. Okay, and today we are going to start with the first chapter, which is 4.1 molecular and structural formula. Okay, before we begin, let's take a look at what you're going to learn in 4.1. In 4.1, actually you have learned it before in secondary school, but today you are going to learn it more about it. Okay, so we are going, you have to know how to what is the definition of structural formula, and then you also need to know to show the structural formula in the form of expanded, condensed and skeletal structures. So this is new things for you. And then C, to classify carbon into primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary carbon. And also we are going to classify the hydrogen into primary, secondary or tertiary. Now please take note everyone that this subtopic only covering the C1 and C2. Okay, so let's begin. Now, like I said, I mentioned before, in this chapter we are going to learn 4 subtopics. So we are going to start with molecular structure and molecular and structural formula. But before that, let's berkenalan dululah what is organic chemistry. Okay, organic chemistry dia lebih kepada whatever compound that has carbon. Okay, whatever compound that has carbon, that one is organic. Okay, it's the chemistry of the carbon compound. So all organic compound contains carbon. Ini wajib. Okay, semua organic compound itu dia mesti ada carbon. So selalunya bila dia ada carbon, dia punya kawan paling rapat adalah hydrogen. Okay, this is dia punya kawan paling rapat lah. And also sometimes in the organic compound it contain some other elements such as oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur and other halogens. Now, what is the property of carbon? Okay, so as we know, this is carbon, for example. Okay, this is carbon. So carbon, it has 4 valence electron. Okay, it has 4 valence electron, and because of this, it is able to produce 4 covalent bond. Okay, usually 4 covalent bond. Even if you have the what we call it double bond pun dia memang counted as 4 covalent bond. So ini carbon ya. Okay, now let's learn about the classification of carbon. For carbon, to classify the carbon, it depends on how many alkyl group attached to the carbon. Okay, how many alkyl groups attached to carbon. So alkyl group, usually when we say alkyl group, it is something like CH3, CH2, CH3, okay, or I can say alkene that become the substituent. Alright, alkane that become substituent. Okay, this is alkyl. Sekejap, Madam tulis alkane that become substituent. Okay, now to classify carbon, four classifications of carbon. We have the first one, which is primary carbon. We have secondary carbon. We have tertiary carbon, and we have quaternary carbon. So how are we going to, how can we classify the carbon into primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary? Okay, let's begin with primary carbon. Okay, primary carbon, if you refer to your notes, it is carbon that bonded to only one carbon atom. So how is it happen? Okay, I give you an example. say this is your carbon. Okay, we know carbon can attach to can do 4 what covalent bond, right? And then this carbon attached to 1 carbon. Okay, 1 carbon. Sekejap, madam bagi cantik sikit. Tak cantik. Okay, sorry. Okay, now this is H and dia connected dengan satu carbon. So this carbon is the alkyl group lah. For example, like CH3. Okay. Now, since you see this carbon attached to 1 carbon. Okay. Carbon ini, the red carbon, attached to 1 carbon only. Therefore, we can say that this red carbon is primary carbon. Macam tu. Okay. Now, let's take a look at secondary carbon. Okay, secondary carbon is where the carbon bonded to only 2 carbon atom. So, yang ni macam mana pula? Okay, yang ni macam ni. C, H, H. Okay, tapi dia bonded dengan 2 carbon. Kalau primary tadi, 1 kan? So, ni mungkin CH3 ataupun ini adalah katakan ethyl, alkyl group lain, CH2, CH3. So let's take a look at the red carbon. Okay, let's take a look at the red carbon. Red carbon attach berapa dia attach dengan berapa carbon? Okay, kalau you tengok kita ada 1 and we have 2. So this one become secondary carbon. Okay, secondary carbon. Okay, so I think tertiary carbon you dah boleh expect kan? Kalau tertiary carbon maknanya that carbon bonded to only 3 carbon atom. So, how is it? C, H, kemudian CH3. Katakanlah kali ni madam guna semua CH3 ya. Ini CH3. So, red carbon attach dengan berapa carbon? Ada 3 kan? So, kalau ada 3, maka ini akan jadi tertiary. Dan akhir sekali, quaternary carbon. Quaternary carbon confirm semua carbon, that carbon attached to all 4 bundles of carbon. Okay, so 1, tapi dia attach dengan 3 alkyl group ataupun 3 carbon. Okay, so like this. So this is, we can classify as quaternary carbon. Senang kan? Tak susah. Okay. Tapi, madam nak awak take note. Okay, untuk classification of carbon, okay, dia hanya boleh bila carbon itu four covalent bond only. Okay, katakan kalau dia ada multiple bond like this. Okay, so we cannot classify it. Or easy to say, only sp3 carbon involved. Only sp3 carbon that you can classify. Alright? Okay, so kalau carbon kita buat classification, hydrogen juga kita boleh buat classification. So how will this happen? Okay, hydrogen terbahagi kepada, before that. If you want to classify the hydrogen, it actually depends on the class of carbon. Sebab tu madam ajar awak classify carbon terlebih dahulu. Okay, so untuk hydrogen ada 3 sahaja kelas. Okay, we have primary hydrogen, we have secondary hydrogen, and we have tertiary hydrogen. Okay, to classify hydrogen, let's take a look at the commands. Okay, primary hydrogen is an atom that attached to primary carbon. So how is it? Okay, so let's see. Okay, kita cuba buat macam yang tadi. Okay, ni Okay, so if we want to classify hydrogen, we have to classify the carbon first. So this red carbon, okay, kita fokus red carbon sahaja ya. Okay, kalau kita lihat, this red carbon is of course primary lah. And therefore, all the H that attach to the primary carbon will automatically become primary hydrogen. Okay. Now, for secondary hydrogen, same thing, which is the hydrogen attached to secondary carbon. So, carbon CH3, CH3, H, H. Okay. If we classify this carbon, the red carbon, it will be secondary. And therefore, the red hydrogen will automatically become secondary hydrogen. So, kalau kita nak classify hydrogen itu, kita memang kena depends on the class of carbon. So, mari kita tengok tertiary. Okay, tertiary, ada carbon. And this carbon, red carbon, attached with 3 other carbons. Okay, 3 other carbons. And the other satu hydrogen. So this carbon, the red carbon, is always will be tertiary, and therefore the red hydrogen will automatically become tertiary hydrogen. So macam tu, okay? So mari kita cuba tengok satu soalan. Okay, kalau lihat dalam nota awak, kita ada satu soalan. And then the question asks you to indicate and state separately the class of carbon atoms in the following molecule. So, kita fokus carbon sahaja. Okay, carbon sahaja. So, mari kita lihat carbon yang kuning itu dahulu. Nah, ataupun kita tengok yang ni dulu lah, carbon pink. Okay, if you look at this carbon pink, okay, this carbon attached to 4 other carbons. Okay, 4 other carbons. So this one will be quaternary. Okay. And then the green, if you look at this green, okay, dia attached dengan 2 carbon. So dia adalah secondary. Okay. And then next. Okay, yang hijau kan, yang semua hijau tu kalau tengok yang hijau satu lagi ni pun attached dengan 2 carbon. So dia memang secondary. Okay, mari kita lihat carbon purple. Okay, carbon purple, cuba kita tengok yang paling atas tu. Okay, dia bond dengan 3 carbon. Maka carbon purple ini adalah tertiary. Sama juga dengan carbon purple yang di bawah. Okay, di bawah, dia pun attach dengan 3 carbon. So, dia akan jadi tertiary. So, yang kuning tu apa? Okay, if you look at the yellow one, okay, say we start from here. Paling atas ni, yang ini. Okay, this carbon attached to 1 carbon only. So, this is primary. Sama juga yang ini, primary. So, actually, all yang yellow itu adalah primary carbon. Okay, nah macam tu. So, kita akan buat latihan untuk ini. Tapi, madam nak ajar dulu and then in the end baru kita buat latihan lagi. Alright, class? Okay, so let's proceed. We proceed with structural formula. So structural formula ni is this the same thing like what you have learned in secondary. Secondary you learn about molecular formula and also structural formula. So structural formula, okay, it shows how the atoms in a molecule bonded to each other. Dia akan tunjuklah yang ni apa ni macam mana atom-atom tu dia bonded to each other and how they arrange themselves. So that is structural formula. So for structural formula, untuk awak, dulu awak pernah belajar beberapa, but maybe you didn't know whether that structure is expanded or condensed or skeletal. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you what is expanded structure, what is condensed structure, And what is skeletal structure? For expanded structure, okay, expanded structure actually it will show all the covalent bond. Okay, tapi dia tak semestinya akan tunjuk actual shape of the molecule lah. Now, I give you one example. Okay, Madam bagi contoh, kita ambil C2H6. Okay, so this one is what we call this. Ni kita panggil molecular formula kan? Okay, so this is molecular formula. Now, how are we going to change this C2H6 into expanded structure? So we are going to draw it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 3 hydrogen. We have another 3 hydrogen. Okay. So ini kita panggil sebagai expanded structure. Where you buka structure itu, kita tunjukkan dia punya semua bond. Okay, I give you another example. Apa lagi CH3COOH. Okay, CH3COH. So kalau kita nak buat expanded structure, kita akan lukis seperti ini. H3 kan? So kita buka dia. Macam ni. C double bond O. Selalu kita biasa letak H kan? Atau kita buka lagi. O H. Macam ni. So inilah expanded structure. Kita buka structure tu, kita tunjuk semua dia punya bond. Okay? Okay. Next is condensed structure. So condensed structure ni apa beza dia dengan expanded? Okay, for condensed structure, we don't show the single bond. Okay, we don't show the single bond, but only between carbon and hydrogen. Okay, please take note. Okay, only between carbon and hydrogen atom. Okay, but double bond and triple bond kita kena tunjuk. So, kita tak tunjuk single bond sahaja. Itu pun carbon dengan hydrogen. Okay, kemudian, okay. And kemudian selalunya kita akan guna ni, benda ni, apa nama ni, kurungan, okay, to show functional group, alkyl groups or other side chains, okay. So yang ni, sometimes we also use this one if there's a indicate repeating structure. Ini nanti madam tunjukkan lah apa maksud dia repeating structure. So apa condensed structure ni madam? Okay, kalau kita ambil contoh tadi itulah, kita ambil contoh tadi madam lukis apa ya? Okay, sekejap. Okay, madam lukis H ni kita kan tadi C2H6 tu. Okay, so this is expanded. Now, if you want to turn it to condensed, kita kena tak tunjuk dia punya single bond. We don't show the single bond. So, we are going to write it like this. CH3, CH3. So, sayang-sayang semua, this is condensed structure. Okay, this is condensed structure. Kita ambil satu contoh lagi. Madam guna contoh yang sama juga macam tadi madam bagi CH C double bond OH. So condensed structure dia adalah CH3 COOH. Okay. Sekarang madam bagi contoh yang lain lagi Madam bagi contoh apa okay. Madam bagi contoh CH3, CH2, 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 COOH. Okay. Ini kalau tengok dia memang madam tulis dalam keadaan condensed. Tapi apa yang madam nak emphasize adalah penggunaan bracket itu. Okay, which is this one. So, awak boleh guna CH3, kemudian buat kurungan CH2. Okay, ada berapa CH2? Ada 1, ada 2, ada 3. So, you put 3 here. So that is how we use the what we call that kurungan. Okay, and then we add COOH. Okay, so This is condensed structure. Tapi madam, kalau saya nak lukis macam ni boleh ke? Tak ada masalah. Boleh. No problem. That is still considered as condensed structure. Okay. Kemudian, kadang-kadang tu kita ada contoh-contoh lagi macam CH3. Okay. CH, dia mungkin ada Cl kan. Dia satu bonded dengan Cl. So, kita akan letak macam ni. Okay. So, CH2Cl. Macam ni. Sorry. Sekejap, madam salah. Madam nak bagi contoh lain. Kalau kita ada contoh macam mana C H H, okay, katakanlah macam ni. CCl H C H H H. So ni kita nak buat dia punya condense, kita buat CH3 CH dalam kurungan Cl. Yang ni untuk fulfill this one. Okay. Use the, apa nama benda tu? Kurungan to show the alkyl group, functional group. Okay, macam ni. And then continue with CH3. Macam tu. So this is condensed structure. Okay, last, madam nak tunjuk pula skeletal structure. Okay, skeletal structure. So skeletal structure ni macam mana pula? Okay. Okay, madam nak bagi contoh yang ni lah. CH H C Cl H. C H H H. So yang ni macam mana kita nak buat? Okay, dia cakap show only the carbon skeleton. Okay, and then C chains are drawn zigzag. Madam, macam mana tu madam? Sekejap madam tunjuk. Okay, and then H atom are not written. Functional groups are shown. So macam mana? Okay, macam ni. Right. Sekarang ni kita tengok ini. Kita tengok bahagian ni. Okay, kita ada berapa carbon di sini? Kita ada 3 carbon kan? So madam akan label dia carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3. So dalam skeletal structure ni kita tak tunjuk tahu kewujudan carbon tu. Tapi macam mana kita tahu kewujudan dia? Kita buat dia dalam bentuk zigzag. So C1 ni, madam letak satu titik sini. C2, satu titik. Dan C3, titik macam ni. So, kita sambung dia. Macam ni. So, dia nampak macam zigzag. Ini, di sini ni, maka, sekejap. So, ini kita indicate dia carbon 1 lah. Carbon 2, carbon 3. Okay. Tapi, hydrogen kita tak tunjuk. So, this is like this. Kemudian ada Cl kan. Cl dekat carbon nombor 2. Cl kita kena tunjuk. So, kita kena buat macam ni. Letak Cl. Okay, so apakah skeletal structure yang sebenarnya? Yang paling cantiknya bukan ada titik-titik tu. Macam ni je. Hop, hop. And then Cl. Okay, macam ni. Cl. Okay. So, madam bagi contoh lagi. Macam mana Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ada berapa carbon dalam ni? Okay. Dalam ni ada walaupun blur kan, madam ada berapa carbon madam? Macam ni. Kita titikkan. Kalau madam punya style lah. Okay, ini style madam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, rupanya dia ada 6 carbon. Kemudian, H tu macam mana kita nak tentukan? Okay, kita tahu kan, carbon kan boleh ikat dengan 4 carbon. 4 covalent bond. So, kalau tengok carbon ni, yang ni dia dah ada satu bond dekat sini. Dia ada satu bond. So, kita kena tahulah. The rest tu ada 3 bond dekat sini untuk H. Tapi kita tak tunjuk H tu tau. Kita tak tunjuk H tu. Okay, macam carbon yang ini. Dia ada 1, dia ada 2. So, kita anggaplah di sini ada H dan di sini ada H. Okay, carbon nombor 3, 1, 2. Itu untuk next carbon dia. So, 3, 4, H, H. Sama juga 1, 2, H, H. 1, 2, H, H. 1, 2, 3. 4. 1, 2, 3. So, kalau kita nak buat, kalau awak kena bagi macam skeletal structure and then dia tanya, macam mana nak ubah pergi condensed structure. So, tadi ada berapa carbon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, CH2, carbon nombor 2, carbon nombor 3, carbon nombor 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, carbon nombor 5, yang sekali last tu CH3. Macam ni. Okay. So, kalau kita Madam ambil contoh yang dari sebelum ni. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, this is, yes, this one. So, we are going to write this as CH2, CH3, CH2, 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 CH3. Okay, this one. Okay, tapi katakan Madam bagi satu contoh lagi. Alright. Katakan awak ada satu structure yang ada functional group. CH3, CHCl, okay, CH2, CH2Cl. So, how are we going to construct the skeletal structure for this one? So, first thing, kalau Madam akan kira carbon dahulu. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, let's construct the zigzag first, the skeletal first. Tulang dia dulu. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Kan? Okay. And then, at carbon number 2, kita ada chlorine. So, kita memang kena buat dia bond dan macam ni. Okay. So, maksudnya, kalau you ada functional group, you have to show the bond. No matter what, you have to show the bond. So, just like this one, chlorine. Okay. Carbon number 4. Carbon number 4, we have chlorine. So, put here, chlorine. Okay, put here, chlorine. Okay. So, let's take a look at some example. Okay, contohnya kita ada C4H10. So, how are we going to draw the expanded structure? Kita mulakan dengan 4 carbon dulu. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, this is our expanded structure. So, if we want to write the condensed structure, okay, we are going to write it like this. CH3, CH2, CH2, CH3. No bond. Okay, tak ada bond. And for skeletal, kita ada 4 carbon kan? So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tak ada functional group lain kan? So, there you go. That is our skeletal. Right? Okay, for cycloalkane. Okay, cycloalkane kita ada 6 carbon. So, cycloalkane ni dia cyclic. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay, macam ni. So, H tadi 1, 2, ni setiap ni ada 2 H. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Ini ya. So, condense ni macam mana? Okay, condense ni kena hati-hati sikit. Okay, kita buat macam ni. Memandangkan dia cyclic, condense ni kita tak boleh condense dia semua. Nanti you tak nampak dia punya cyclic. So, we are going to do it like this. CH2. Okay, bond mesti dekat carbon. Carbon. CH2. Carbon. CH2. Carbon. CH2. Tapi mesti dekat carbon macam ni. Tak boleh dekat H. Mesti dekat carbon. Because that cyclic, only the carbon connected to each other. Okay. So, this one. CH2. Madam, kita boleh tulis terbalik macam ni. Boleh je. Tak ada masalah. Okay. So, like this. CH2. Now I said carbon and carbon, right? So connect them. There you go. Okay, this is it. And for skeletal, senang. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ini dia. So selama ni awak dapat macam ni kan? This is the skeletal. So bagi madam lukis yang cantik sikit skeletal dia. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there you go. This one. Okay, cuba kita tengok pula. Okay, tengok contoh yang melibatkan functional group. Okay, kita ada chlorine, alcohol semua ni kan. Alright, so how are we going to draw the extended structure for haloalkane? Okay, so yang ni actually dia ada chlorine dan dia ada 4 carbon. So mungkin awak tertanya, madam, chlorine dia dekat mana? Kalau dia ikutkan, dia tak nyatakan sini. So kita boleh letak mana-mana lah. Tapi selalunya kalau hujung ni, madam letak sahajalah di hujung. So another hydrogen, another 9 hydrogen, kita distribute je. So here we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So how are we going to write the condensed structure? CH3, CH2, 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 dalam kurungan Cl. Macam tu. And how about the skeletal structure? Okay, for the skeletal structure, 4 carbon. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ada chlorine kan? Dekat last tu, kita letak chlorine. Macam tu. Sekejap. Kita nak bagi. Tak lawa lah pula kan. Okay. So, like this, Cl. Alright. Now, alcohol. Okay, dia di ujung kan? So, ada 2 carbon. So, we start with 2. 1, 2. So, alcohol, the functional group is OH. Macam ni. So, another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there you go. Right. How about the condensed structure? Okay, the condensed structure will be CH3, CH2OH. And how about the skeletal structure? Ni ada 2 carbon kan? So, kalau 2 carbon tu macam ni je lah. Satu line. 1, 2. Tapi chlorine, OH ada. So, OH. Macam ni lah. Okay, itu skeletal. The first example for haloalkane and alcohol. Let's see the second example. Okay, carboxylic acid. So, carboxylic acid ni dia COOH. Dia punya apa nama ni? Dia punya functional group. Okay, ada 3 carbon kan? So, C double bond O, H. Dia selalu dekat hujung. Okay, kalau carboxylic memang dekat hujung. Nanti kita belajar lebih lanjut. So, we already use 1 carbon. So, the rest of the carbon will be here and here. So, berapa lagi? Kita dah guna 1H. So, another 5H. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this one. Okay, how about this condensed? The condensed will be CH3, CH2. Ini bolehlah buat terus macam ni. COOH. Perlu kurungan ke, madam? Selalunya kalau carboxylic acid, tak perlu kurungan. Okay. And then how about this one, carboxylic acid? Okay, so dia ada 3 carbon. 1, 2, 3. Tapi ada OOH. So OOH tu kita akan draw macam ni. OH. This one. Okay, ajak. Ni carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3. Carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3. So dekat carbon 3 tu kan COOH. So we draw it like this. Okay. And lastly, cycloalkane. Cycloalkane 4. Ni macam tadilah madam buat. Okay, ini menarik ya. Kalau 4, kita buat dia macam ni. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, kita boleh buat dia 4 segi. But if you want to draw it as diamond pun boleh. Tak ada masalah. Okay. So, H, 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 H. Ini expanded. Okay, ini expanded. So, dia punya condense CH2, 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 CH2. Okay, macam ni. Okay, and then skeletal dia. Okay, kalau cyclic ni memang kita punya condense, kita akan tunjukkan juga dia punya bond. Cuma kita condensekan CH tu lah. For the CH, we don't show the bond. Alright? Kita don't ever write like this, okay? Never ever write like this. Apa benda di korang nak condense semua sekali ni? Kan? Okay, don't write like this. Alright? Don't write like that. Okay. So, this one, Madam tunjuk lagi Madam ni nak tunjuk je lah sampai awak boleh faham. Okay, so ni Madam terus bagi jawapan. You all tengok. Ataupun mungkin awak boleh pause dulu. Awak buat dulu dan tengok jawapan Madam. Okay? Alright, so ini ada 4 carbon kan? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Carbon nombor 2 ada OH. So, letak macam ni. Carbon nombor 3 ada Cl. So, like this. Okay, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, kita ada satu lagi carbon dekat sini. So, what we can do about this? Macam mana nak buat di medium? Okay, kita ambil mana yang rantai panjang? Like this. We have 4 carbon, right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tak cantik. 4. So, carbon number 2 ada another CH3. Tapi kita dah cakapkan CH3 ni dia CH3. So, we cannot show the C, we cannot show the H. So, we are going to write it like this. Macam ni. Which means, Gegar pula. Okay, which means ini okay, which means this one ni CH3 lah ya. Ni adalah satu carbon. So this is CH3. And then if you look at carbon number 3, tengok ada Cl kan? So ni. Tapi sebab dia Cl, dia bukan carbon. So kita kena tunjuk the functional group. Okay, and lastly we have this 3 carbon cyclic pub. Macam ni. Boleh ke madam? Boleh. Kalau nak buat macam ni pun boleh. Sekejap. Okay, macam ni boleh. Tak ada masalah. Senang kan? Okay, yang ini pula kita ada skeletal. Lepas tu dia minta kita buat condensed structure. So, you boleh pause video ini dulu dan cuba buat. Okay, and then you tengok macam mana madam buat. Okay, so kita ada berapa carbon ni? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dan selalunya dia ada 2 H kan? Selalunya dia ada 2 H. So, our condensed structure will be CH2, 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 CH2. Ini dia punya condensed structure. Okay. Alright. So, let's see the second one. So, ini 1, 2, 3, 4. Dan carbon number 2 ni ada satu carbon here. So, how are we going to do the condense? So, CH3 for carbon number 1. Okay, carbon number 2, we have CH. Okay, satu sahaja H dia. Ni satu sahaja H dia. Tapi dalam kurungan dia ada CH3. Atas kan? Then CH2, then CH3. Okay. Alright. Next one. Ni macam menarik sikit. Pelik je kan? Okay, jangan rasa pelik. Kita identify mana carbon dia. Okay, so actually carbon dia dekat sini. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sekejap. Kita merasa nak tukar warna. Jom kita guna warna biru. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 carbons. Okay, so carbon number 1, dia ada CH3. Carbon number 2, I assume this is carbon number 2 So kita ada satu H dan Br. Carbon number, madam tak rasa tak cukup. Madam buat dekat bawah ya. Okay. Carbon number 1 we have CH3. Carbon number 2 we have CH, ada Br. Carbon number 3 we have CH, pun ada Cl. Dan carbon number 4 CH3. Okay. Okay, dan nombor 4 ni ada apa pula ni madam? Ini sebenarnya double bond. So still this is carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, 4 and 5. So how are we going to write the condensed? CH3 for carbon number 1, carbon number 2 CH, double bond CH. So the double bond is between carbon number 2 and 3. And then CH2 and then CH3. Macam gitu. Alright. Okay, so ini cuba pause dan cuba buat. Okay, so ni ada 4 carbon kan? So carbon number 2 ada NH2. Buat macam ni. NH2. Senang. Did you get the same answer like madam? Okay. So there you go. Itulah yang awak akan belajar pada hari ini. So untuk homework, please refer to lecture notes page 7. Question UPS 2007, 2008, 2010, 2011. And then tutorial book. Okay, tutorial book tu ada banyak. So yang ni madam akan bagi jawapan kemudian dan madam nak awak check sendiri. Okay? Okay, sebelum kita menamatkan pembelajaran, mari kita balik semula kepada latihan quaternary, carbon dan semua tu. Okay, so kali ni madam bagi awak dalam bentuk skeletal. So how are you going to classify the carbon? So easy ya sebenarnya. Okay, kalau madam macam ni. Madam akan buat, madam cari dulu mana carbon dia. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, dia ada 10 carbon lah. So, mula-mulakan carbon ni lah. Okay, yang atas ni, dia ikat dengan 2 carbon. So, should be secondary. Sama lah, ni pun secondary. 20 pula. Salah, madam. Kan, so this is secondary. This is secondary. Okay. Madam nak padam yang ni dululah. Kita bagi dia warna biru. Sebab apa? Sebab dia ikat dengan 3 carbon. So, ini tertiary. Okay? Kemudian yang ni pun secondary. Ini secondary. Okay, ini tadi kita bagi warna apa? Biru kan? Sebab dia tertiary. Sebab dia ikat 3. Tengok. 1, 2, 3. So, tertiary. And then, yang hujung-hujung ni paling senang. Sebenarnya hujung-hujung ni usually dia memang primary. So, this one is primary. This one is primary. Okay, so ini pun awak classify juga carbon dan label carbon yang kena label X dan Y. Jadikan ini sebagai kerja rumah. So till then, itu sahaja untuk 4.1. Thank you everyone.